Welcome to the Luke Jaeger Show. Today's guest is a Canadian guitarist, musician, a guitar tech. His name is Eric Morettin. He's most known for his band, The Vilification, and most recently joined Sleep Terror, my band. Hey, Eric. Thanks for coming on, dude.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Can we start with your background? When did you start playing music? Was guitar your first instrument, and what were some of your influences?
Sure thing. I guess if we're going all the way back to the very early beginnings, I guess you could say my first instrument was really noodling around on the drums. There's an old family video of me sitting on, I think it's my dad or my uncle's lap, and showing me how to like play the drums because I think it was my uncle because he's a drummer. So he was just like, holding my hands and like just showing me how to like keep beat or whatever. So I guess that was like the real first encounter with a musical instrument. My mom played the organ for years growing up. Then pretty well like in grade 6 is when I got like my first guitar for a Christmas present. I was in and out of sports, and I guess my parents wanted to find out like what's something that's really going to stick, like a hobby or something. Then they're like, well, we'll just buy him a guitar at Christmas and see what happens. And around that time I started getting into metal and like hard rock and all that. And there was a music channel back on Canadian TV called like MTV or like Much Music. And I don't know if that was a thing in America, but in Canada, there was another thing that was called a Much Loud, which is like the metal and alternative section of MTV. So that was on for a long time. That's the music that really got me into liking all that, or the music that really clicked with me, So then out of nowhere, I get a guitar and I'm like, okay, that's cool. And, like just take lessons every now and then, or like, always just saying like, oh yeah, I know how to play this thing, then months down the road, I actually get involved in some real lessons and then just start playing from there. And kind of the rest is history. I just kind of like stuck with it. And it was really my thing from a really young age. Like I'm an active person. I like to do active things and different sports and things, but musical was the one thing that really was the most consistent thing in my life for a very long time. Cause I'm still doing it now and I'm 27 and I started back when I was like 12 or 13 or maybe even 11, honestly. So a huge part of my life. Then otherwise getting into like different bands, taking guitar even a bit more seriously, hearing about other bands, listening to their music and saying, wow, this sounds pretty amazing. This is pretty impressive stuff on guitar. I'd love to learn how to play that. So then it turns into, let's take this thing way more seriously. Let's learn how to play it. Let's learn different techniques and everything. Then, of course, guitars for some people are works of art. They're different body shapes, different colors. So now I guess you could say I'm like partially a guitar collector as well as a musician as well. So yeah, it's just grown to this crazy thing that I couldn't really, imagine myself all these years ago saying like, this is what life is going to be for Eric when he's 27, doing music like pretty well full time and just having a crazy guitar collection. It's pretty wild. And having two different bands, like one in Seattle with you and one back in my hometown in Ontario.
Yeah. Are you still living, are you on the west coast of Canada right now? Or because I know you've moved around a little bit, but where are you located right now?
So I grew up in Ontario, Canada, in this little city called Thunder Bay. It was a hot spot for bands to pass through on Canadian tours. Then recently, 2018, I moved across the country to Vancouver, Canada, just to pursue like a career. So I went to school and university for a degree and to get a job. And in that job market that I'm in, it was kind of hard to find a job in my hometown. So it made sense just to move and obviously move to a bigger music city to kind of explore different opportunities. And it just so happened that, I'm right above Seattle too. And we've kind of linked up and the rest is almost history in that perspective. But yeah, West Coast right now.
And when you were growing up, like getting serious with guitar, did you take lessons?
Yeah, I was taking lessons for a really long time, probably since when I started, right up until the end of high school is when I was taking like weekly lessons and everything. Then I went to university and started studying classical guitar and then trying to balance that with playing, 8-string technical metal or just other like heavy metal guitar in general kind of became a toss up, but it was also good learning different styles as well as, the thing I really like doing. Then since university ended, I've been taking like lessons here and there from different guitar players just through Zoom or Skype and everything like that. And I found that's really helped as well. through taking lessons. And a lot of the things I do as well are self-taught as well, whether it's recording or whether it's learning new techniques on guitar and just pushing myself even further.
Hmm. Can you take us a little bit through your history with the vilification and just bands in general? I mean, playing live and, 27, you're still pretty young. So, whatever was going on between when you started music and up till now, what have you been doing as far as performing and your current happenings?
Sure. Yeah. When I started playing guitar, it was me and my best friend, who's actually the bass player of the Vilification. His name is Eric as well, and
Mm.
him and I are the primary songwriters. Him more so, and we just kind of started playing music together, and we grew up together, and we started like writing songs, started learning songs like Tool, Pantera, Alice in Chains. Then it turned into, hey, I got some tab paper, and like I started writing a riff, and I was noodling around, like, let's see if we can play this, and let's put all these riffs together, and like maybe we can make a song out of it or something. Maybe we can make a band name out of it. Maybe we can make a band. Who knows? Then it just kind of snowballed from there, and getting different members that were in our city. And the city that we're in, that I grew up in, Thunder Bay, it's kind of a small, big city, or a big, small city. Um, Especially like when it comes to different styles of metal. Like I was probably one of the first people in town to get an 8-string guitar. Me and the other guitar player that we were playing with as well. We were one of the first people to actually have 8 strings and use them actively in our band, the Vilification. Whereas a lot of other people were still on 6 strings tuned to drop C. Metalcore is really big in my hometown, whereas different cities have their different thing. Vancouver and Edmonton and Quebec and Montreal, they're big on death metal for sure. But it seemed like Thunder Bay was really big on metalcore, and maybe some other doomier genres of music as well. So trying to find people who had the same mindset and the same drive of what we wanted to go for was kind of hard, but we managed to find that after a couple different lineup changes and a couple different albums of really finding our sound, which is, I guess you could say, is a blend of like Sixth, Periphery, Tony Danza Tap Dance Extravaganza, and probably Architects, the best way to describe us. And yeah, and even within that, there's other bands in my hometown too that do similar things as us, but I think we were kind of the first ones to really wave the flag of the new wave of where metal was going in like the 2010s and everything.
Mm.
Then, obviously different musical adventures within my time in Thunder Bay as well. I joined a death metal band that was kind of along the lines of Death and At the Gates as well. And that was super fun. That was a great experience as well, especially jamming with seasoned music scene veterans. So it made me from a young age, probably at the age of 17 when I joined, to kind of get your stuff together and learn how to be an adult when you're still a kid, or even just grow up a little fast so you can be mature and hang out with the older guys who have been doing this forever because they see something in you, which is what these guys said. They're like, we can see that you know how to play guitar really well, and we want you in the band, even though you're like 17. I'm like, all right, so let's see what happens. And that's just kind of the thing. It just kind of made me grow up a little faster and take my instrument even more seriously, which I think is kind of crucial if you really want to pursue something further, is just the amount of maturity and dedication that you have to put into it. And then even since moving out here to Vancouver and, linking up with you, Luke, it just turned into, okay, let's take it even more seriously. I got a lot of downtime. Let's get YouTube going. Let's get Instagram going. And like, let's just push the levels of what I can do and how serious I'm going to take this even further, especially because living in Vancouver, you're a small fish in a big pond. So you got to really stand out in some way, shape, or form. And that's the big key. Like I fix guitars. I'm doing different things on guitar. I'm writing different kinds of music. And it's just staying busy, staying active, and staying ahead of the curve, I guess you could say, or staying with the curve, right? And trying to stand out as best as you can. Mm. And, it led me to, linking up with you, and and when you said like, yeah, you're one of the only guys that's actually been able to play, my music this successfully in the amount of time that I've been doing it. So, I mean, I guess that goes to say it's like, you put in the work, and then, the rest can kind of just fall into place if you are in the right place at the right time, right?
Yeah. That was the thing, man. Is in 20 years, like we've had many auditions with guitarists, bass players, and I guess I was always lucky in the drum department, ironically.
Yeah.
But yeah, you were just the versatility you have. You're able to play and adapt to different genres of music, whether it be funk or surf or jazz, or you have a very wide range of chord knowledge, and you know what you're doing as far as the notes and the keys you're playing in, and
Mhm.
obviously a theory background there, and so that but of course sleep terror, that's one component, but then the chops, the physical ability. The hardest thing I think is like a lot of people playing those really fast, like eight eight notes and
Yeah,
alternate picking, and you actually pulled that off, so that was surprising.
I
Um,
appreciate it.
but yeah, I know we haven't played live yet. There's been a lot of kind of a friction in terms of our progress because of the lockdowns and stuff. But yeah, we're you know definitely was impressed with your playing. Um,
Did it.
What speaking of the guitar tech stuff, what how do you have a website for that, or how do you guys um, how are you doing that, kind of like on a local level, or
I'm kind of doing that at a local level right now. I honestly started when the singer of the death metal band he's a guitar player as well, and he said, "Hey, I want to get this guitar going again, but it has a Floyd Rose, and I don't really know how to work on it. And you have Floyd Rose guitars. Do you know how to like work on this?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. Just get me some strings, and I can work on it for you or whatever." I gave it to him, and he was like, "Man, this is the best it's ever played." Then I thought, maybe I can go somewhere with this. Then I just put a post on Facebook saying, "Hey, I just fixed this guitar or whatever in my local community." And, like if you want your guitar fixed, I can probably do it as well. Like for the most part, as a beginner, then, my inbox was just like, "Hey, fix my guitar, fix my guitar, fix my guitar." And I'm like, okay, so I guess there's a market for this. So then, learning how to, do different things on guitars, learning how to repair guitars in different ways and different things that need to be fixed. And it just kept growing and growing and growing. And it turned into like a little side job for a while. And it turned into now almost something that's almost maybe unmanageable at times, with my full-time job that I have as well. It's pretty busy. I mean, but it's just kind of exploded into this crazy thing, still at the local level though. But I mean, I have been approached by other high profile musicians who say like, "Hey, why don't I just take you out on tour now, and knowing that you can do this and that we're friends? Okay, just sign me up." And I guess that's the whole thing, is like, that'd be fun, just going out on the road and teching for bands. I've done it before in the past with just at the local level or like a small touring circuit and everything. But I mean, I think I would like to expand it even more, along with actually playing live and doing more tours internationally and everything. So I think getting back to what I initially said of just like taking yourself more seriously and just being able to expand on what you're doing and take what you're doing even further, just to kind of diversify and put yourself out there more.
when you get a guitar, like I guess we can isolate it to like an electric. What are the first things you look for? I've always been kind of a guitar tech myself, but I find myself in a lot of these these rabbit holes of like the truss rod's off, and then I got to go back and look at the action and the
Yeah.
just a lot of stuff. I mean, it's a very scientific. How do you approach looking at a guitar, and what steps do you take to uh, do a basic setup? I mean, do you look at the action first, the truss rod? Do you look at uh, what? I guess what are the order of steps that you
Yeah.
take?
The first thing I would do is honestly look at the neck. You could say the string of the guitar, it could be like a straight edge or a ruler. Then I just look down the neck and I just try to see the how the neck is bowing, whether it's a back bow or a forward bow, like a bow or a hump. And then I just kind of go from there to see what I'm actually working with. Um, I like to do that first. I also like to see, going from like looking from the bridge up to the nut as well, and the nut down, just to see what I'm working with for the neck. Because I always find that's the one part of the guitar that's going to go first before the action. Because the neck is temperamental for the most part, and depending on how people store it, either the neck is going to have a forward bow or a back bow, or the truss rod could potentially be seized, which I've seen before, and it's definitely not fun. I know a lot of people have truss rod anxiety because they don't want to go too far to where they're going to actually snap the truss rod, which will turn into basically throwing out the neck of your guitar, unless you want to pay someone to take the fingerboard off and put a new truss rod in. So different strokes there, right? So a lot of people won't even touch it because it's such a finesse thing that people don't want to mess up in general. So I guess my best piece of advice for that would just be go slow and just read what's online and make sure you have the proper tools, because I've seen some guys just go in there with Allen keys and they're not even fitting properly. Some Allen keys are actually like on an angle just to fit because they're trying to make it work. And that's actually going to strip out the actual fitting for the Allen key. That will actually ruin the truss rod in general and make it not be able to be moved for the most part, thus rendering your truss rod and the guitar neck useless, essentially. But I like to go there first, then I'll look for the action and everything. I also notice that hardware comes loose really quick. I mean, especially with the string vibrating all the time, even if you have a Floyd Rose, I do notice the different tuners, the washers and the nut on them, those will come loose over time as well. So I like to tighten those as well, because every little bit will help, especially like even tightening the bridge down. Those will all help with tuning stability as well, as well as lubricating different moving parts on it. So if you lubricate the nut and maybe the saddles, wherever the string is making contact with, that's going to hold your tuning a little bit better, as well as tightening it every nut and bolt on the guitar, and it's just going to feel more solid too. And that's kind of what I look for. You can kind of make a $100 guitar feel and play like way more than it's actually worth. It can maybe feel like a $500 or a $700 guitar, right? But maybe you bought it at Walmart.
Yeah.
Those are main things I look for. Then obviously electronics, that's a whole other rabbit hole as well to get into. Yeah. So I mean, right now I'm doing a active to passive pickup swap for a customer's guitar, and it's a lengthy process because you just need different parts and everything. And I'm the kind of guy that I'll take my time with this stuff because I don't want to mess it up and I don't want to have to do the same job twice because something messed up. So as I said earlier, just go slow and there's no reason to be a hero, especially if you don't know what you're doing. Like if you don't know what you're doing, just like you can hand it off to someone, and there's no shame in that as well. I mean, I even put up a video of like a couple months back of working on Rex Brown's, like from Pantera's old basses, because they needed work. And there were some parts on it that were kind of above what I was able to do at the time and for the timeline. And because I couldn't get parts for it, so I just had to make it work. And that's the thing. It's just like, you don't have to be a hero for everything. Just kind of do what you have to do to get it working, and then just hand it off as well. And especially if the customer is okay with that and understanding of what's going on, because we were both under short timelines and it needed some parts, but I was able to get it going. So those are the main things that I look for, really. Just, I guess you could say, the neck, electronics, and maybe any loose parts. Then the rest just kind of goes from there.
One issue I found, I think, do you ever think that maybe the less expensive the guitar is, that there's more problems in the long haul of things? Or do you think that, because sometimes I've had really expensive guitars that have had problems, just like my cheap guitars, but do you think that's, like, it's funny, I bought an American-made Strat, and I still, of course, the tuning problems, like if I do wide bends, I'll go out of tune. But I guess that's kind of common with, if you don't have a locking nuts, right? But
floating bridge.
But one problem I've had is even some expensive guitars, like when I bend really high on the high E string or something, it'll buzz. And I could never figure out, like, and this is years of just like, studying guitar tech stuff and truss rods, and I still really don't even know how to look at the neck when I've seen people kind of set the guitar and look down at it, and I've always measured the truss rod with a feeler gauge and a capo and things like that old kind of traditional method. But anyway, what do you think about, like, do you think expensive guitars and cheap guitars are kind of this on the same boat in terms of the affection they need with repair, or do you think it's just
I definitely think they could be on the same boat. I mean, you could get away with an expensive guitar being made really well, but we've also seen like some of the new models that are coming out from heritage brands that are quote unquote junk, right? Because the quality control from the factory isn't there. Maybe the wood isn't being dried as slow as it should have been being dried. There might be some moisture and the wood might be moving still. I've seen cheap guitars, but obviously being really cheap and feeling not that good. I've also seen cheap guitars and owned really cheap guitars that play great. Like I have a $250 Jackson at back in Ontario. There's no locking tuners, has all the original cheap Jackson die-cast hardware, and that thing stays in tune so well and it feels great. The only thing I did to it was put some active Seymour Duncans in it, and it sounds amazing and it feels amazing. But I've played some other really expensive guitars. Like I'm worked on this one guitar a while back, and it has a Floyd Rose, and they were actually drilled through like the claw screws right through the body into the neck pickup cavity, and apparently that was good enough to pass the bench of quality control, which I think is unpassable. And pots were dirty like already from the factory. Parts were loose from the factory, and I'm just thinking, how did this get out the door and be sold for maybe 1,200 Canadian dollars, brand new, when this feels like a used guitar, after the person just bought it and brought it to me. So I don't know. I think a lot of it depends on quality control. And I've seen some import guitars, and I own some import guitars that are amazing, even the stuff that's made in China. I know a lot of guys will knock the Chinese stuff because, the whole thing of you can get everything from China and you shouldn't be able to get a guitar there that's worth so much money. But I've played some Chinese instruments that are amazing. I've played some American instruments that are terrible. So I think it all depends on what's coming out of the factory and how well it's being treated upon quality control. And, maybe it's just the cut of the wood of the day, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I think it goes both ways personally. I don't think there's one worse or better than the other. I mean, you've obviously seen like the stuff online with some of these brands that have been going around for a long time, or even the newer brands that have like cracked fretboard wood, or the headstocks are snapping, or, other things like that.
Yeah, it's weird. I used to play a Godin nylon, the MIDI guitars, and I bought the same exact model several years later, and it did not feel or sound the same at all.
It's weird.
It's kind of like a Levi jeans, like you put on a pair like 10 years ago and they fit a certain way, and then you put on the same like 501s or 550s, the same size and everything, and they're like, what the hell? Like
Yeah,
it's the same
exactly.
kind
Right.
of thing. It's like, man, I don't know. I don't want to say quality control, but I mean, it's interesting how
I
every instrument's so different.
It is. It's so, I mean, instruments are fickle creatures, right? Wood is temperamental. No guitar is always going to be perfectly in tune, even with an Evertune. Like, if you look at the different parts of the fretboard and everything, like every note on there will be sort of in or out of tune. Like it won't be perfect unless you have true temperament and maybe an Evertune as well. But otherwise, if you're just getting like a regular straight fret guitar, like every note in there is going to be either like a little sharp or flat by a certain amount of pitches. Or even
Mm.
then, like as you just said, like with the jeans and like other guitars, like buying an old one and buying the exact same model years later, like everything's built on a production line for the most part, unless it's a American or like handmade from like a luthier. So then why is the quality differing, right? If everything's like machine cut and everything, that's the hard thing to really wrap my head around.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
a lot of companies now, I mean, especially the ones that might have been around for a long time, they might be looking at it like a business model. Like how can we make the most money with maybe the least amount of overhead? And I get it. I mean, everyone has to put food on the table for sure, but it's just unfortunate that, maybe some companies have had quality go down over a certain amount of time instead of just staying consistent or going up. We can even say that with import guitars. I know a lot of people will say Korean made guitars, and I'll even say Korean made guitars are some of the best import made guitars you can get on the market right now.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean they're made super well. Like a lot of my favorite playing guitars that aren't American are just straight up from Korea because they play and feel so well. Like, yeah,
Yeah, that's interesting. I think, God, I would say around 2003, four, I bought a Jackson Dinky, and I'm pretty sure it was Korean made.
yeah,
DK2. It had the skulls on it, like Shannon Ham from Death.
yeah.
Man,
I
it was
remember
my
that one.
favorite guitar. I mean, it was the best guitar ever. And then I bought a soloist, a Jackson soloist, years later, and it sucked. I mean, it was U.S. made, and I just like, man, I'd rather play on the Korean made one. I don't know what it was. It was just the feel of it, the sound of it.
And it's
Yeah, so it's
yeah, and that's very interesting because I know a lot of people that I talk to, they aren't too keen on the Jackson stuff. It's either great or it's very you might want to pass on it and find something else for the same money.
mm,
Yeah. A lot of people too that I've seen in like the forums will say like a lot of the maybe like Indonesian made guitars have a lot of quality control issues. Now, obviously I'm not on the production bench. I'm not in QC at these brands or anything, but a lot of them will say like, we just got to return them because, you know, some of them are just like, we have to put too much money in to repair it to get it onto the shelf to be sold, that we're actually like not really making any money, or we're actually losing money on some of the guitars, which is too bad, right? Because I mean, you know, someone's going to buy this at the end of the day and pay good money, you know, especially if you're a kid and you want to save up for a guitar. You might not have all the money in the world, especially if you got to pay rent or whatever. Then you have to go and buy that because maybe it's the only 7-string at your music store, and this is your frame of reference for a 7-string. Maybe it's clunky, doesn't feel well, doesn't sound that good. Maybe things are like vibrating weird, and then you might be uninspired. And I just don't think that's really a great representation or a good time for like a musician or maybe a young kid who's trying to get into guitar or anything. You know, regardless of how many strings or the level of guitar, I think everything should be pretty decent at this time. I mean, 2021, I mean, you can buy a guitar for $100 off Amazon, or you can buy one at Walmart for $100 and it can be okay. But I mean, you're paying like top dollar from a music store and it's not good. I think that's an issue about the guitar, or maybe some of the models from maybe a certain factory or a certain line of guitars. So yeah, I think it's just too bad that, you know, we're still at this stage with all this technology and, you know, information at our hands.
What are you up to these days? I know, you know, I follow a lot of your videos, and I saw recently you even got props from Zach Wild.
Yeah.
You have I enjoy your videos, and that's another question I'm going to ask is, what is your recording setup? You have great tone, and
Sure.
just what is your DAW, and do you mic your cabinets? Do you do direct in plugins and things like that?
Sure. I mean, yeah, I'll talk about the recording stuff. I just go straight into a Focusrite Scarlett 4i4. Then I just bought a new computer because my other laptop was kind of on its last legs. So got a new computer, and I'm using just Reaper, honestly. You know, every DAW is just like ice cream. Like there's different flavors, and whatever you like is going to get you from A to B. Like I got Reaper because it was free, and you pay the $60 for the full version, but otherwise it's free and it works for me. And that's what I learned on. And there's a ton of resources out there for me. And, you know, a lot of the plugins, they just work with Windows as well. So that's the thing. I'm a Windows guy, and it's not like you need an Apple and the software has to be written on Apple for Apple. A lot of guys can just make a plugin or a VST out of their bedroom and it will just work on Windows, which is nice, especially when you want to just try new things and see what's going to work for you or not. So Scarlett and Reaper, and that's kind of it. And I got, as you can see back here, I got some older KRK Rocket monitors, and they're fine. And I've learned from other guys, like high profile names like Dave Otero, who have said like, you know, just buy what you need to get you going and learn on that before you just dump any more money into it, because you need to learn on like lower end ish or lower quality gear to get good on it before you start racking up the bills by buying like, you know, the Adams monitors or like, you know, higher end DAWs and everything, or higher end interfaces, because you could throw a bunch of money at it, but it won't make you sound better if you don't have the skill with it. Just like getting a guitar, like, you know, you can go buy a $4,000 guitar because you have a lot of money as a first guitar, but it's not going to make you sound or play any better than someone who starts on a $100 guitar, for example. And in terms of amps, like I have a couple amps here and I got a couple plugins. I have my two Mesas. I got a Mark V and a dual rectifier Road King 2nd gen. Then I have the infamous green Mark II Rev generator 120 that has the plexiglass front on it, and it's able to change colors depending on what channel it's on. So I got those, and I got a couple guitar cabs out here. I got a Mesa crank and a matching Rev 2x12 that's green as well. Probably seen it in some of my videos as well. And I'll either mic it with like just an SM57. I'll just kind of throw it up on the mic, or throw it up on the speaker rather, and just go straight into the interface. Or I'll go amp head out into a 2-notes captor, just as a direct out if I can't turn up the amp that loud, you know, whether I'm recording at night or whether neighbors are around. Then go straight into my interface. Then I like to use the Neural DSP cab sims on their amp models. So I have the NTS, the Omega amp suites, And when I'm using those as cabinet impulse responses, I'll just turn off the amp head and the pedal function of it and just have the cabinets going. And I think they sound fantastic, honestly. I
Mm.
really like how you can have different mics. You can blend them, you can move them around. They're left or right or closer or further away from the dust cap or from the actual cone itself. I think that's a really great tool, and it's just simple. Less is more. And I try to not do a lot of post processing with the guitar tones as well. I try to get them as good as I can going into the interface. And even then, like if it doesn't sound good at this recording, well, I'm going to change it again for next time and learn from that rather than spending all day or maybe weeks just trying to chase tone and until the cows come home to then basically delay everything that I'm doing because I'm so fixated on tone. And honestly, if I'm in a pinch, I'll just go straight into my interface and just throw on neural DSP and go on to a different preset and just kind of roll with that, and just whatever happens, happens. I like chasing tone as well. So I like trying different things and seeing what's going to work and what won't work and just throwing it out there and seeing what's going to work, to be totally honest. I used to do the same thing with bass. Like I used to have a bass amp and run it into my interface and with like a line out. And I thought I don't need a giant bass amp just to do that. So I just go direct in for bass. So I got a Dingwall bass and a Fender Jaguar, and I just go those straight in with a free plugin and a bit of compression, and it sounds fine, honestly.
Mm.
And it's funny because you can go pretty far with free plugins these days. So, and that brings me back to the original point of learn on free stuff or inexpensive plugins and hardware before you start investing like $100, $200 on plugins. And then if you don't know what you're doing, you're probably going to be disappointed. So learn on stuff that isn't going to hurt the bank, then invest some money into it later when you feel comfortable. Or, I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
Mm. Do you also master your tunes that you put up on YouTube and stuff, or is that you have someone else doing that? Or
I mean, like I shouldn't say I know what I'm doing when it comes to mastering. Like I have a limiter, some compression, and a bit of EQ as well. So I just kind of throw that on the master bus and just kind of get my ideas out there. I should probably learn how to actually master, whether it's, actually like reading forums or anything or watching videos or maybe getting like Easy Mix or something. Cause I know there's guys who still do that and they sound fine, or actually paying someone to master it. But I kind of just like go for it and like do those three things: compression, bit of limiting, and a bit of EQ, just to kind of put a bit of flavor on it and just see what happens, honestly. Yeah.
Are you so in your side job, you're also teaching guitar as well, right?
Yeah, so teaching guitar as well as fixing guitar as well. So yeah, a couple students right now, and I'm just doing FaceTime lessons as well. I just make an event on my calendar, then I just click the link and just we meet up every week, and I just teach them songs, scales and different techniques and everything, or different songs that will help them build a technique as well. I think that's really important as well, or a riff that'll build a technique.
And what are things like right now where you're living as far as the music scene? I mean, are things kind of coming back to normal? Are you kind of locking? Are you still kind of locked down a little bit, or?
Yeah, it's weird. Vancouver, Canada is like in a weird spot right now of we're locked down, but we're not locked down. Like I went to a music show, like a concert the other week, and it was at the arena in the town I'm in, and it was fine. You had to have both your shots to go in and everything, and like whatever. So go in and like, okay, everything feels fine. Then there is a show I was supposed to go to. My friends in Archspire, they were supposed to have a CD release, and their show got canceled because essentially there wasn't enough seating for the capacity that was supposed to be there. So it was supposed to be at like a bar, which doesn't have a lot of seating in general. And everyone was kind of taken back by it because I thought restrictions were done, even though everyone like maybe has their 2 shots and everything. But then it seemed like everything was fine for this other like huge country music star that went and played basically a sold out Rogers Arena with 10 to 20,000 people there, and people were standing and everything. So then a lot of us were thinking, this doesn't really make sense. So a lot of us were pretty miffed about that. So I guess the big thing right now is seating, as far as I can tell. So if you can have an actual like concert with audience members that are actually assigned a seat, I think that's going to be a selling feature for a lot of things right now, which is unfortunate because, it really hurts the smaller artists as well. It lets the bigger artists thrive, but everyone started small at somewhere, and even some of the smaller guys or even some of the bigger bands in death metal are still playing the smaller clubs as well, because maybe it costs too much money to rent out other halls that might have a bigger capacity, which will then decrease their the amount of money they'd actually be making at the show. So it's kind of weird. Like, shows are back in a way, but they're kind of not in like 100% like back to normal, right? How are they in Seattle? Like, are shows happening or?
Yeah. It's I mean, there's the whole, show your 3, 4 forms of ID kind of thing to
Yeah,
get in, but I don't really, it's weird. Is I've been going to shows since I was like 14, 13 years old, so
yeah,
I
same.
don't really have like a huge craving like I used to. It's like most of the bands I like I already seen, and
Hmm.
they're all old now, and like, and local bands, I'm not really a huge fan. I'm not like, I mean, it's just a little different, because I'm like 40 years old. You're a young guy, so I would encourage you to, if you can get out and enjoy yourself, by all means. But it's different. I think at this age, I kind of like, the only shows I really want to be at are my own, like,
Yeah,
But
yeah. Go to the shows you play.
yeah, but that's not really fair to say, because I think, if you like something enough, you go to it. I mean, the last show I went to that I really had a good time was Hall and Oates and Tears for Fears.
Oh,
I
nice.
flew down to San Diego, and it was the best show of my life.
Oh, that's
I mean, it was
awesome.
center front of the stage. It was just, yeah, no words. I mean, it was just the best thing ever. I mean, I already
That's
seen Hall and Oates, but like to see Tears for Fears up close like that was just like, that's, but that's a different experience than like, oh my,
it is.
go to some club and see like some metal band, because unless I really like them, which
Hmm.
is unfortunately, man, these days, I'm kind of a cynic, but um, yeah, I don't really go out much, and it's not. I don't think it's getting old. It's just more like lack of passion,
Yeah.
But I guess I'm speaking more kind of a performance thing, because you're a very talented musician, and
Thank you.
you
Appreciate it.
you want to go out and play, but you also want to go out and see how your scene is, because if your
Exactly.
scene is kind of locked down, and or just, I don't know, just the changes in the music scene in general, or it doesn't matter what's going on, but uh,
Yeah,
every
no, for
city
sure.
has its like, I think Seattle, back in like 2000, I actually, when I first moved here in 99, it was very poppin', but the problem back then was all the shows were under 21, or sorry,
Yeah,
over 21. You could not get
yeah.
into a
21
show.
plus.
It's funny because I remember, like, I went to see Tomahawk or something. Our fan, I came up to Mike Patton and I was like,
Yeah,
dude, why the hell are all your shows 21 up? And he's like, I'm sorry, man. Like, I can't control that. It was like, it's funny because, yeah, all the shows back then were you have to be over 21 to get in.
yeah,
Now it's not like that. If you just get a stamp and go in, but it's like, but it's worse now, because now you got to show, 3 forms of ID and like your medical records and stuff, and it's like,
yeah,
so I feel sorry for kids now, because and I know Canada is really strict about that, so that's the only reason I asked about that, but
yeah. Even some of my friends who are musicians and able to travel to the States for work or to actually go play shows, they've even said like America it's an easier time getting to America and actually working in America right now as a musician rather than Canada. And they're like, yeah, we're super fortunate that we're able to actually go down and like, whether like, get your shots or, if that's your thing or whatever, and then actually go and do work, if music is your livelihood and go play and everything. Whereas Canada is, we're still kind of treading waters. I know, like, yeah, we're pretty conservative with going too far too fast, I guess you could say.
mm,
No one wants to be back where we were square one, right? But at the same time, it's like everyone's just chomping at the bit. It's like a bunch of dogs that are tied up, and just like ready to go. Like, we just want to go play shows. Wheels are spinning, but we're in park. We're doing a burnout, going nowhere. And I think everyone's just kind of like, all right, enough's enough. Like, let's just go play some music. And like, I thought we could play music, No, I guess apparently not. So a lot of people are very put off by that, by the way current things are being handled right now. So, I mean, I
Hmm.
totally get it. I mean, I want to come down and just go tour and go play, but unfortunately, it's like seems like there's so much uncertainty, even with the summer festivals that were going on, the summer tours they were going on, and everything was good after maybe 4 days or so. Then tours are just getting canceled, and like that's not really fun, especially to put all this time and effort into the production, the rehearsing, and actually to travel internationally, for our cases, and to then have your shows just thrown out. Like that's too bad just to get rescheduled. Like really, it's really unfortunate if that's the current case, that you're going through.
Yeah, and once it clears up, I definitely can't wait to like get back and you know, once we can actually go out and tour and not worry if we're going to be shut down at an airport, or because someone, I don't know, tests positive or something. With especially international tours, I heard we can't even come back here if someone tests positive, even if you're vaccinated. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's that kind of one thing it's funny because right when you joined, actually, I was in really heavy talk with a lot of different booking agencies, and when this happened, it was kind of like,
Yeah.
man. So but yeah, I'm still kind of waiting on that to kind of waiting for the fog to clear on that stuff, and
Yeah.
but yeah,
I,
I've been
I think
really.
that's the thing. It's like if we're gonna do it, we got to do it right, where we know for sure, like everything's a okay. We're gonna go, and there's gonna be no hiccups. Especially
Mm,
if we're going international, right?
yeah,
And I
yeah.
think that's for any band. It's like, I think that's almost the smartest thing is wait till the fog clears. Because I mean, everything looks good on paper so far, but it's like paper versus practice. So it's hard to say. I mean, different strokes. People are touring now, and it seems like some people are fine. But I just was hanging out with Suicide Silence the other couple weekends back, and they were even saying, yeah, Vancouver is the only Canadian spot on the tour because every other venue in Canada basically said half capacity and like half the guarantee. And it's like, well, we can't really afford that because Canada is so vast, and like basically all that money is just going to go right into gas, and we're just going to be losing money, which is too bad, right? I mean, because everyone's got to eat, right, and everyone's got to get paid, and it's unfortunate if you're going to from venue to venue to lose money at their level, and that's no one should be doing that at their level.
No, totally.
Yeah, you shouldn't be going from venue to venue to lose money at a professional level.
Uh, I want to plug some of your websites. I know on Instagram you are at Eric. So you have your name kind of abbreviated ERC_MRTN. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the one.
And then you're on Bandcamp. You're the vilification.bandcamp.com. Eric Morettin. That's two T's.
Yeah,
MOR.
Morettin.
And then your YouTube. I think it's the Meddler Eric M.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
yeah, that's correct. That was an old YouTube channel I made when I was like really young, like probably like just first starting to play guitar. Then I had like a couple of videos up there from when I was young, and it's like a 13-year-old YouTube channel name created by a 13-year-old. So trying to do that, and it's just kind of stuck to me. I can't change the handle right now, but if honestly you just search up my name, the channel will come up as like Eric Morettin. Then yeah, but the
Yeah,
website
yeah.
URL is the Meddler Eric M. It's a very very teenaged name. So yeah, those are my outlets right now. I don't have anything to really plug for guitars, like guitar teching or anything. All you can do is just like find me on Instagram. Like I'm always posting that I'm fixing guitars and everything, or even Facebook. It's usually like a DM to get your guitar fixed if you're in Vancouver, and that's just kind of how I built myself for the longest time for fixing guitars and everything. Is just saying like, hey, if you want your guitar fixed, and if I'm in your area, like hit me up, because I got a mobile toolkit with me with everything to
Mhm.
fix the guitar, and I'm ready to go. And it's worked so far. It's nice not paying for ads, and you're making money.
Yeah, man. I really appreciate you coming on the show, and
Thanks for having me.
I'm looking forward to working with you more. And you already have probably at least a dozen songs learned, and I know we've been working hard on this for the last year. But
Mm-hmm.
I feel really strongly that we're going to be back playing live again soon,
I
and
feel that too.
it's actually cool. You're pretty close too, and yeah, like I
Yeah, I
said,
mean,
interesting after so long looking for guitar players, and we never. The biggest problem I've always had is that people who can play metal really well can't do the other styles, and you
Yeah,
actually kind of you can actually you can do those things, and it's good. It's good enough, but yeah, again, like the chop thing, it's like the fast, the 270 beats per minute type of that stuff. I don't know why
yeah.
that's like the hardest thing that
I think, I think it's like
I don't know why
with
that
work.
style isn't.
I think it's like working out. Honestly,
Yeah.
like muscle memory. Like like that's another thing. Like I love working out as well. And like if I'm going to the gym, like I want to lift heavy on like the heavy days, like whether it's bench or deadlifting or squats, and like that's the same thing as like crazy fast tremolo picking. Like you just got to go and maintain it. You got to go in and just knowing that you want to do it and that you have to do it as well. Like if you're
Mm.
down there squatting 4 plates, like you got to go back up. And if you're trying to tremolo pick, like let's say the section in like Cleared for Disaster or whatever, or even like some of the older stuff like Probing Tranquility, it's like you got to hold on, you got to push through it, and like so everything's got to be in line. Your pick angle, your pick attack, and like the fluidity of like your right hand or left hand if you're a lefty. Like it's all has to be in lock, and there's so many moving parts that just have to be like right on with each other for you to do it. Just same like with going back up when you're lifting or picking up a bunch of weight at a deadlift or getting the
Mm.
weight off your chest for a bench press if it's really heavy. You just got to make sure you do it. It's just like muscle memory. You got to maintain it.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great. I've never really thought of that analogy. It is very controlled, the techniques, like tremolo picking, that's when you're kind of. I had a student the other day, he's really young, 9 years old.
Mm-hmm.
We were working on Van Halen, one of my favorite songs, I'm the One.
Oh, nice.
And he was doing the trem picking and stuff. And he was having a problem with that. And I said, here's the thing. When you're doing eighth notes, sixteenths, or whatever, and then you're doing that fast trem picking, that's a different thing. Like you gotta relax a little bit.
Yeah.
But when you do that really staccato stuff, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
you have to. It changes your the muscle tension in your hand, everything, all that. But like you said, that's a great. I never really thought of that. As far as the connection of the bodybuilding to guitar in that way, like the resting point, or I guess
Yeah.
the eccentric and all that kind of thing. Like, but yeah, no, it's
The
very true.
technique and like the form all has to be there, whether if you're super loose for crazy fast tremolo picking or whether you're holding it super tight and you got a belt on because you're trying to squat 405 pounds, right?
Mm.
Yeah. It's the same idea in a way. That's why I like to think of
Speaking
it.
of fitness, when did you get into weightlifting?
I got into weightlifting kind of around 2015, I think, is when I really started taking it seriously. I was in university, and I had like a ton of university courses. I think I was taking 9 courses per semester at this time, which was considered course overload by university standards. That's when like you have technically too many courses, but I guess if your grades were decent, the university said, well, if your grades are good, you could probably take it, the extra courses. So I was getting pretty overwhelmed and everything, and not being able to have time for music as much because I was so like focused on like trying to get all this schoolwork done. Then my one friend, his name's Cameron, he was like, hey, why don't you just come to the gym with me, like burn off some steam. I'm like, okay, sure. Then he's like, hey, I'm going today. Like, get your gym clothes, bring a towel or whatever. Then like, we'll just go and I'll show you like a couple things. And okay. Then I went there and I'm like, oh, sweet. I feel good. I don't feel all stressed out anymore. So kind of started with that and like trying to maintain like a calm nature and like a positive sense of like well-being and like in terms of maintaining stress and everything like that in my life. And then it turned into, oh, I can lift heavier. Oh, I can lift more and heavier, or I can lift less weight, but like way more reps. Like this is actually fun. It's kind of like playing guitar. I can pick faster. I can pick harder. I can pick lighter. I can, do different styles of picking, things like that. Then it turned into like a kind of self competition of how much weight can I actually lift? So then it turned into, okay, let's add another plate, add some more weight, add more weight, then just kind of evolve from there, where I'm actually lifting some pretty significant numbers, I guess, for my size and my weight these days. You know, I'm not the tallest person on earth and I'm not the biggest person, but I can lift significantly, you know, which is pretty fun, you know, for a bunch of self competition at the end of the day. Just like guitar and music, you know, if you're not doing it for yourself at the end of the day, then, you know, you might be doing it for the wrong reason if you're just trying to do it for success or to make a
Definitely, yeah.
name for yourself. You know, you got to do it for yourself at the end of the day. And if you get some success, cool. You know, and if you want to really push yourself for success, awesome. But if you're going into it with like the mindset of I'm only going to play guitar or an instrument for Instagram or social media success and not do it for myself because I'm genuinely interested or passionate in it, then you might be doing it for the wrong reason. Same with any other hobby in general.
Hmm.
When did you start weightlifting or really get into that?
Uh, I didn't get really serious about it till 26. That
Yeah.
was, I kind of tapped into it a little bit. I would do like a day or two and like, yeah, I'm He-Man and have my whey
Yeah.
protein shake and like, yeah, but I would not stick with it. And that's also not because of willpower, but it was also because of circumstance. It was like
Yeah.
I didn't have a really good gym nearby, or I didn't have access to a gym. And I think once I moved back to Seattle when I was in 2008, I was 26 years old.
Hmm.
And I signed up. It was a really nice gym, which nowadays is, oh, I don't want to talk about it, but back
Yeah.
in the day, it was beautiful. It was a big high-rise 3-story gym. And
Oh, nice.
but I joined, and I just never, ever since that day, it was the 1st of January in 2008, never stopped, unless I went out on tour for a month or two once in a while. But I was hooked, and I was out of shape. I wasn't fat. I grew up kind of overweight. Once I hit about 12 years old, I was overweight. I was chubby. I looked like Pugsley.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, until about 23, and then I went vegan. So I trimmed down a little bit. I was vegan for about 3-4 years,
Interesting.
mostly for like health, but also mostly I'd probably say animal rights stuff. I was always big into that stuff, and
Yeah.
but anyway, I joined a band, moved to LA for a little bit, and then I went back to eating meat after about 4 years because I just could not cook vegan food all the time. I was getting really angry all the time because I was hungry, and
I think
it
especially
was
on
just
the road too. That
oh
must have
my
been hard.
god, it's horrible. But yeah, so I kind of went back into eating fish and chicken and stuff back in 2007. I was 25, but 26 was the age where yeah, I joined the gym, and I didn't really see results until about a year into it. But I kept doing it every day, and I think 27, actually your age. Wow.
Yeah.
So that's when I'm like, I saw a photo. I took photos, and I I look like Van Damme on Bloodsport. I was just ripped,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then just tanned and like veins and stuff, and it
Shredded.
was just all natural, no drugs, just all
Yeah.
clean food and training, and then like those hormones at that young age, and I was ripped, man,
Yeah.
and then but I think I started kind of bulking up. I got a little, I don't know, I don't say like like that look where you're big, but you're kind of like
Yeah.
you got that little bit of fat on you that you could probably get rid of. But
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
like I think like 30, like in the EMG videos I did on YouTube of
Yeah.
EMG
I remember
pickups. Like
those.
I was big, but I was kind of like I wasn't as vascular as I was at
You're just
your
kind of
age.
pumped.
Yeah, like at
Yeah.
your age, I was like faint, like it was like Van Damme, But then I kind of turned into like Steve Austin, and then it kind of got to like, you know,
Yeah.
but as I got into my 30s, it definitely kind of like I got bigger, but it wasn't as like lean looking, but it was still badass. But
Yeah.
I think now like I'm stronger. I'm just as strong as I've always been, but the look is not as like dry as I want, but it's like
Yeah.
that's kind of what happens when you're natural. You got to do the best you can,
Yeah.
and
You
and
fluctuate.
and it is what it is. It's you're not going to get I mean, I see pictures of like, Mike Menser and Arnold and all these guys back in those days, and they were on, let's be honest, like they were
Yeah,
on shit like
yeah. Let's call a spade a
Dianabol
spade
and
here.
all these drugs, and
Yeah,
like I'm not, I don't have anything against that, but I'm not, I just refuse. I'm not going to do that because like
yeah,
I'm not
exactly.
making, I'm not looking to make money on this, and I want to also, I'm still trying to see the best I can do at my age. I want to see what can I do naturally, you know. Like I started doing the keto diet, even though I drink a few beers now and then. I'm
Yeah,
not totally keto, but I changed my diet. I got rid of flour, rice, grains, potatoes, all that stuff, right?
yeah.
So I'm making
Super
small
lean.
changes just to kind of see what can I do with my body, and but I will say it from I would say from like age probably 30, 31 to about now where I'm almost 40 where it's you're not going to really see too much change in your physique, naturally, but you can maintain it. So that's a good thing, right? Cuz you see
Yeah,
people who they lose it, I
you
mean,
can lose it
especially
fast
stress of
too.
life, you can just turn in you could get really heavy and so if you can maintain it that's great, but I mean if you're doing this professionally I'm not going to even get on that because it's like if you're trying to be a Ronnie Coleman, I mean yeah you're going to have to take about 2 dozen different drugs, but
Yeah,
I'm
the amount
not
of
I'm not really interested in that. I have enough. I'm too busy with music and other things. I don't have time to do that, and
yeah.
I'm not really interested. But it is,
That's the same thing
it's
for me, like even a lot of people said, why don't you start competing, because if you're this tiny and you can lift this amount of weight, I'm like, well, because I don't really care to compete for weightlifting. Like I'll do it for myself, and like if some people will see me at the gym and be like, holy, like you can pick up some weight and like, yeah, thanks, whatever, that's cool. Enjoy your workout. Appreciate it.
mm,
But I mean, I'm not looking to make waves in like the weightlifting community. I'm just like looking to do it for myself because it's a personal goal. It's interesting, like at the end of the day, guitar is a very like personal sport. Weightlifting can be as well. And I'm also a golfer too, which is like a very solo sport. So I do a lot of these solo sports as well. Group sports are fun too, but I've always found like the ones where you can really hone your craft and see the results, like guitar, weightlifting, or golf. Those are the ones that are really like, okay, like those are the ones I want to take really seriously because I can see the results. I can analyze them like to like the micro movement and really see what I can do better and how I can like change my lifestyle or change my performance to actually better the actual outcome of what I'm trying to achieve. You
mm,
know, whether it's different picking technique, different golf swing, or changing my diet and like how I live every day just to actually lift more weight.
yeah,
Yeah. I think
yeah,
that's the thing. It's just as long as you know what you're doing and know what your end goal is and why you're doing, I think you're kind of set up for success and whatever level of success you want to achieve. Because success just varies depending on what you want to do with it at the end of the day.
yeah. It's just all about your vision and I don't know. Most
Yeah.
people
And
they
like,
they
let's be real. Like, if you're not happy at what you're doing, you should probably change it up. Like, yeah. If you're just doing it just because you're going through the motions and it's not bringing you any joy, you should probably change something about it or, change it altogether, you know?
totally yeah.
Yeah.
And there's some people they'll get to like I don't know 300 pounds of muscle and they're taking 100 different uh, drugs and stuff, and that's their living, and they like that. Like I would, I guess the way I feel is like I have nothing against that, because especially like in the '70s, I feel like the stuff they were doing back then was they took less of it, and they had more ideal bodies, in my opinion. Like
Yeah.
I saw. I go to LA Fitness here, and there's a guy. He's obviously on something like growth hormone. I think that's what it is. But he has
Yeah.
like, he's big, muscular, veiny, and he has like this abdomen that's like poking out, right? Like it's
Washboard.
yeah, it's like a growth hormone gut, I guess you call it. It's like all
Oh,
muscle. It's
yeah.
like, but he looks like he's pregnant. And I
Yeah. Like,
don't like, in my opinion, I think like the early '70s guys, the '50s, even '60s, '70s, of course, they were on some things, but I think the smaller amounts of whatever that was, and it was since banned. It was worked better for, nowadays everything's black market, and and like I've never dabbed into that stuff, so that's
Exactly.
kind of why I came
I
to the
know a
point where
guy
it's
who
like,
knows a guy.
yeah. So now I've always been natural, and it's hard because you have these expectations of what you want to look like or feel like, but you just kind of have to do your best. And yeah, it was
Yeah,
hard, like seeing like 27, 28. I was in my prime. Like, I mean, you know, 32-inch waist with just this bulging RoboCop chest, and
yeah,
like veins and stuff. And I still kind of got that. It's just hard. It's just you have to kind of cut out things. You got to cut out potato chips, ice cream, all this stuff. You got to get rid of. And
yeah. You got to get rid of your luxuries and your leisure.
yeah, and it's hard, and I see why guys do stuff, and especially if they're doing it for a living and professionally, if you're competing and stuff. Yeah, I mean, you gotta. Yeah, I'm not gonna say it,
For sure, right?
but no, I mean, it's like I think me and you, we look pretty good for, we're lean and
Yeah,
we're healthy, and there's a guy who recently passed away. He was amazing looking.
yeah.
Wish I could remember his name. He passed away, only 30, mid 30s.
I think I remember you sharing that, and it was kind of it's a wake up call for sure for people who are getting into these kinds of activities that have some body chemistry altering effects as well.
Yeah, or
Or
even
side effects.
like Mike Menser. I mean, he was God. He was like a Greek god, and he died at 50 of a heart attack. I mean, I don't know what that what brought that on, but I mean, I don't know, man. It's like I think as a fitness guy, you kind of want to be known by longevity too. So like I always kind of look at Jack LaLanne, even though I don't share all his habits, but I think he was. I would rather be like that guy who's kind of like 200 pounds and just kind of fit looking who lives till he's 100 than like some
Right?
dude who's like 300 pounds of like like Dallas
Pure
Carver or
muscle.
these guys who uh, drop dead for a competition, which really in bodybuilding, there's not a lot of money in that stuff. I mean, because
Yeah,
I have one of my best friends. He's a firefighter and a competitive bodybuilder.
yeah,
He was like 260 pounds. He was only 5'8". He's a beast. I mean,
yeah.
short
Huge.
guy, but he was just a beast.
Yeah,
And he's like, dude, there's no money in this. Don't do it.
yeah. So it's like,
He's just
why
like,
do
unless
it?
you're like Jay Cutler or Ronnie Coleman, and you're at the top, or like,
Yeah, it's like there's nothing
it's like,
people below.
yeah, it's just, he's like, you have, it's just, this is all, you have to do this for yourself. And I'm like, that's kind of why I never got into that hardcore dieting stuff and all that. But
Yeah,
I like the way I look. I'm happy. I feel very blessed. My genetics, how I was able to be like a scrawny, flabby looking guy and turn into like kind of like a RoboCop. Big
yeah.
chest, like great arms, and a good physique. Naturally without any drugs, just dieting. Consistency is really the number one thing. Consistency is every day. You don't
Honestly, that's
skip, and maybe you
that's the
skip a
big thing.
month because you go on tour or something. But that's like for me at least. I'm not out on the
And then
road
there's
all
there's
year doing.
options out there where you don't even have to skip. If you're doing like anytime fitness or whatever, all these like chain gyms that are in the states or nationwide, like you can just go to the city that has it and just go work out for an hour, then go play your set,
Hmm.
or
Yeah.
just go
Yeah.
go play your set, go work out, depending on where you have to travel to the next day. Go shower, then hit the road.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember like I did a tour with All Shall Perish, and I borrowed someone's push-up bars. But that was kind of nice. But yeah, it is hard finding a gym sometimes on tour. Be out in the
Yeah, I can
middle of
imagine.
like Mississippi and like what the hell.
Yeah, like what's there? Like, because I've driven through the states or even like through Canada too, and you drive through some of these cities and you're like, what is here besides a gas station and the people who have probably built this city from nothing?
Yeah.
It's yeah, you get some slim pickings sometimes, but I think we make it work no matter what, whether it's lifting our amps or whatever or what have you.
Definitely, yeah. All
Yeah.
those little things add up.
Yeah.
Eric, it was great to talk to you, man. Can't wait to work with you more with Sleep Terror, and you know, things are kind of weird right now, but I think we'll definitely be on the stage soon. And
And so I'm
again,
looking forward to getting actually down to Seattle and like, you know, actually getting some one-on-one or like work with you and Marco at this point. Cause I think it's been long enough where we've been kind of isolated from getting the ball rolling.
definitely, yeah, I can't wait. And
Yeah, me too, man.
definitely, yeah, I'll be on that. And yeah, man. Again, Eric Martin. Sorry, Eric Morettin. Sorry,
Everyone
I
does
was
it.
thinking of your Instagram handle, Eric Martin.
It's funny.
It's
Everyone, is that your
ERC.
last name? Like, no, it isn't. Like even some of my best friends out here, they're like, "We thought that was your last name." No, it isn't. It's tricky.
No,
It's
no,
the way
that tricked me. Yeah, no, Eric Morettin. Is that how you say it, Morettin, or do you
Moretton,
go?
that's the way. Yeah,
Okay, cool.
yeah.
So you're on Instagram. We plug your sites. Eric, again, thanks so much, man. And we'll be playing together soon.
Awesome.
And
Can't wait, Luke.
it's good chatting, dude.
Likewise. Thanks for having me, Luke. Appreciate it.
Thank you, buddy.
Cheers.